Good morning, Swansboro Middle School. It's my pleasure to get to bring to you this month's Media Center Advisory lesson. Miss Sweeting and I sat down when planning this lesson and realized that Banned Book Week was coming up, so we decided to take advantage of that and bring to you a Banned Book Week lesson. So all week we're going to be talking about the process of challenging and banning books, what it's like to be a media coordinator and have to put books in a library, what books do we choose, what books do we leave off the shelf, and why. We're going to challenge you to think about things from more than just your own perspective. We think it's important to become informed citizens and to be able to make a really strong and valid argument backed up not only by research but critical thought. So we're going to ask you to really think about, is it okay to ban a book? Is it okay to say, I don't like this, I'm offended by this, so nobody should be allowed to read it? Are our opinions the only ones that matter, or should people get to form their own opinions on their own? So again, we're going to use this week to talk about banned books, the process of banning them, the process of challenging them, and what it looks like to put books in a library, maybe compared to what it looks like to put books in a classroom. As 21st century learners, we have to learn to see things from more than just our perspectives. So you should have started out this week by reading the article on banned books. That article gave you a list of the top 10 banned books of 2012, as well as some background into why books are frequently banned and what books are frequently banned. I was surprised to find out that Captain Underpants was one of the most frequently banned books of 2012. Again, this week is all about figuring out what's your opinion. How do you feel about this issue? Some of the major reasons for banning books are things like foul language, cussing, sexual content. They talk about drugs and alcohol. Maybe they're anti-religious. Those topics are things that offend people. Maybe your parents or an adult in a child's life thinks that they're not quite ready for that material, and so they say that it's written for somebody above that age, but it's being marketed to a younger audience. Things of that nature cause people to say, I don't want my child to read this book. I don't think kids in general should read this book. But it's not just so easy as saying, I don't think anybody should read this book, let's take it off the shelf. So what does it look like when somebody wants to ban a book? So take Captain Underpants, since that was one of the number one ones on the 2012 book list. If somebody wanted to come in, say I did, I had a child and I thought this is way too inappropriate, I don't think they should read this. I can't just walk into the library and say, I don't like this for my kid, no kid should be able to read this, take it off the shelf. As a librarian, it would be my legal responsibility to then issue a formal challenge. If a parent really wanted to do a formal challenge, then what they would do, and what you'll do later on this week, is fill out the form. And there's a whole form and a whole process that goes along with this. Somebody has to have read the book cover to cover, so you're not able to challenge a book that you haven't completely read. So they would have to read the book cover to cover, making note of all of the specific incidences that they found inappropriate or offensive to them. And then they fill out a whole challenge. Once they've completed that and turned it back into the media center, the librarian forms a committee. And that committee gets together, and just like the parent had to, they have to read the book in its completion. So from cover to cover, and they do the same thing. They make note of things that they think are valid, things that they think students would learn from or engage with, reasons that they like the book in the classroom, and maybe they don't like the book in the classroom. So they're also making note of things that maybe don't make sense or could be offensive or that they think make the book inappropriate for students of whatever age level it's being taught to. So then they all get back together and they vote and decide how many of us feel like it is appropriate material for that age level, how many of us don't feel like it's appropriate material. They take into consideration the arguments of the parent or community member or whoever had a problem with the book, and then they come to a decision and either keep it off the shelf or leave it there and let the parent know. One thing to consider is, in my class, personally, we talked about this a little bit, and kids were confused. If a book is banned in the library, it doesn't mean you can't go to Barnes & Noble and buy it, or that in every classroom in the whole school, that book will be taken off of all of the shelves. It just means in that particular setting that the book is no longer going to be provided. So banning a book isn't like something that you would read in a novel where we go out and we burn every copy of that book. It just means in that particular setting that the book will no longer be provided. The question then becomes is, does a parent or a community member or somebody concerned have the right to say that this book can't be read by anybody? Or is it more realistic and appropriate to say that I don't believe my child is ready for this book, and I would appreciate if my child wasn't provided these materials? Again, a lot of this lesson is built so that you can form your own opinions. This is something that you're going to have to think about. So the challenge or the process of challenging a book is a long one. Sometimes it takes months and weeks, and even when a librarian or a community decides, this book isn't appropriate and we're going to take it off the shelf, people don't always stand for that, and so they come back with, well, that's not fair, this book, it's appropriate for my child, why shouldn't they be able to read it? And so it sometimes goes all the way to court, and that ends up, a bigger process. So something else to think about in terms of Banned Book Week is not only the process of challenging a book and what are some of the reasons behind somebody feeling so offended that they would want a book taken off the shelf, but what are the challenges of creating a collection, a collection of books for the library. Right now, I'm a language arts teacher, so in my classroom, I can put anything I want on the shelf. If I think kids are going to read it, I put it on the shelf. And how I deal with that is at the beginning of the school year, I send out a permission slip and parents get to sign. They can read any of Mrs. O'Kaley's books that they want, their child can, or I would prefer that they only read grade level appropriate books. Don't let them read things with cuss words. Don't let my child read things that talk about drugs or alcohol or sexual content. So I know what students can read when they come to my classroom, and most of them get to read whatever they want, but a student whose parent wants to be the person that addresses those issues with them, I have a little mark and I can say, you can't get a book off that shelf, which is fine. And it's easy to do when there are 100 students that you're dealing with and you know every book and have read every book on a bookshelf. It's a really different situation in a library where there's thousands of books and there's just no way that one person could have read them all. So a librarian has an even greater challenge when it comes to what to put on a bookshelf. In an elementary school, a librarian probably struggles with that a little bit, but those kids are younger and they read simpler, more, kind books. Let's call it kind. In a high school, most parents and most people are more okay with their kids expressing themselves more freely and reading and experiencing things that have a higher, explicit content. In a middle school, on the other hand, you have this huge range of students, 6th grade to 8th grade. And what a 6th grader is able to read and understand and maybe should read and experience is really different from what an 8th grader can read and understand and maybe should or shouldn't experience. So a parent who has a problem in the 6th grade with a kid reading a specific title might not have a problem 2 years later in 8th grade. So as a middle school librarian, it's really difficult to decide what books can I shelve, what books do I feel comfortable shelving, and there's not yet a good enough system. It's not like you go to the movie theater and a movie is rated R, and so I'm not 13 yet, I can't go to this movie. If there was a system like that for books, it might make it easier. But because I can't ID every student that comes into the library, and Mrs. Sweeting really doesn't have a system for, well, this book is only for 6th graders, and this book is only appropriate for 7th graders, there's not a way to so closely monitor that on such a large scale. So it's harder for a librarian to put books on a shelf. I get a lot of questions of, well, why isn't that book in the library? Why doesn't Miss Sweeting give us these books? And the answer is because it's harder for her. It's harder for her to monitor what certain kids can and can't read, what parents are going to be comfortable with, and on such a large scale, she has to be more careful. She has to make harder decisions in terms of what to put on the shelves and what not to. Which is why I think a classroom library is so important. So again, it's Banned Book Week, and to celebrate Banned Book Week, we're going to talk all about with your teachers and in your classes, what do you think about the topic of banning a book? Should we be able to just blanket ban a book and say that nobody can read it? We're just not going to do that. We're going to take it off the shelf, and in this school at this time, nobody gets to experience this book. Or do we give parents the opportunity to say, my child's not going to read this book, but I know I don't have the right to take it away from all children. You're going to think about that. You're going to read some banned books so you get to experience and really think about a book in terms of why might somebody be offended by this? What is it that makes people mad when they read this book? You're going to have to think on multiple sides of an issue because not only are you going to read that book, but you're going to have to challenge it. Even if you think it was unoffensive and everybody would benefit from reading it, you're going to have to challenge that book and talk about, well, maybe we shouldn't be able to read it because of whatever. You're also going to have to step back and maybe the book was really offensive to you and you think no kid should ever read this book. You're going to have to take a step back and decide, okay, well, what was good about it? What should have made it a part of our curriculum, and defend it as well as challenge it. Once you've experienced a little bit of that and you've looked through a list of frequently banned books and the reasons that they've been banned, you're going to get to engage in a little bit of debate. And I know you all love to argue, so you'll think this part of it is fun. You're going to debate through a philosophical chair's discussion the statement that no book should ever be banned. Your teacher has all the information on that, so be sure you get with them. Don't let them skip the lesson because it's a fun one. Your first task after watching this video and after reading the article that you read yesterday is to get the list of the most frequently banned books in the last 10 years. We want you to go through that list and highlight all the books on the lists that you've read. If you think it should be banned, then you should put a plus sign next to it. If you think, no way, this book should not be banned, everybody should get to read it, then put a minus sign for no, I don't think the book should be banned. You and your teacher will have a discussion on that later. Once you're done with that, your teacher's going to read you a selection of banned books, and you're again going to have to challenge and defend those books, and you'll talk about it. You'll end this week's lesson with a philosophical chair's debate on whether or not books should be banned. We hope that you enjoy Banned Book Week. We hope that you take the time to really think about what you're reading and why you're reading it and why your teachers assign you the things that they assign you, why the library provides the books that they do. We are around and we're excited about the conversation that's going to be happening all across Swansboro Middle School this week. And if you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to talk to your teachers, come see myself or Mrs. Sweeting, and we would be glad to have a banned book discussion with you. So happy Banned Book Week, Swansboro Middle School. Let's go out there and figure it out. Should we be reading those books?